Hey everybody. A user called Sunpath asked me about my backstory, where I'm from, and my occupation. And I thought instead of just commenting, I'd go ahead and make a video about it. I almost never do this kind of thing, except I made a video about music. I went on about music for about an hour and a half, and what I said in that was very personal stuff. So that's along the lines, if you've seen that, of what I'm going to do here. But I thought, why not? So I've got a few notes here, some things I didn't want to forget, and I'll go in depth a little bit, but I'll also try to keep it kind of brief. So anyways, thank you, Sunpath, for the suggestion, for the questions. Let's see. My younger brother and I have lived all over Ohio. We moved here. I'm in central Oklahoma in 1982. I was 10. He was 9. I expected to hate it here. We came for a job transfer for my dad. My grandmother came ahead of time. She was here with man she was married to at the time, and she sort of set a trend in our family for people who over the years would one by one come out and start a family out here. Yeah, I expected to hate it here, but years later, looking back at everything in my life, I realize how grateful I am for having moved here. Nothing against Ohio or people living there, because there is a lot I miss about it. But what I thought of back then as just some kind of cow town has been developing big time. The city is developing, especially lately, last 10 years, 20 years maybe. People moving here from all over the place, and I just love living in a place surrounded by so much nature. I don't know how much of this I should skip around on with just random thoughts. I have always been, now I'm going to talk about, the subject matter I deal with on the channel too. I have always been, I think it is fair to say, obsessed with history and mythology and music. Always preferred reading and writing to going out with friends, despite having made some great friends and having some really good times in high school. It was immediately after high school that a long loneliness was here with me. I was holding out for what I would much later here refer to as twin flames, or the twin flame phenomenon. And I didn't think of it that way at the time. I was just lonely, and I wanted to be with the person who I would call my wife. With relationships throughout my 20s and 30s, I remained aloof and aimless. And that's a good way of talking about my life at that time anyways. Just generally, I was aimless. Yeah, those two words, both aimless and aloof, those accurately describe how I was generally, and also particularly with the idea of a career. I would just be annoyed with that word itself. I still kind of am, come to think of it. I worked in a restaurant throughout my 20s. Made some good friends there too, had some good times, but things got very lonely in a way that I did not express to anyone. This craving I had for my twin flame. Yeah, I didn't really open up to anybody about that, except one of my two best friends through life. She knows who she is, Stephanie. And my brother, let's see. Yeah, worked. In fact, how old was I? 21. I started when I was 21. It was almost 10 years when I was there. A few months after I turned 30, I started working for an insurance company as a document indexer, which is what I still do today. I haven't been there this whole time, though. I quit after being there for 6 years, lived in Houston, Texas for a few months. Now, I'm not a heat-loving guy, despite the fact that I've been here now most of my life here in central Oklahoma. I often tell people when they react incredulously to my enjoying winter so much and cold weather that I took Cleveland with me when I came here to Oklahoma City. But I have to say, despite the ultra ridiculous humidity and heat that characterizes Houston, I had one of the best spring times I've ever had the amazing opportunity to experience. It rained about half, if not more than half, of the time I was there, and we're talking about January through June of 2009. It rained, yeah, for literally half of that time. I also knew very well, though, how horrid the heat and humidity gets normally, and knew ultimately that I could not make a new life for myself there, but I do not regret going. I got to get away from what had become normal and routine here, and it's one of those things, you know, you need to every once in a while leave where you are, what you're doing, in order to go somewhere else and experience something new, only to come back and reappreciate where you were, what you had before. Don't regret going. I also got to be with my mom during a time just preceding her escape from an abusive relationship. That was not a, just feel like I need to say, it was not a physically abusive thing. It was in every other way you can imagine. It was abusive, nonetheless, though. So I returned to Oklahoma City, got a new job doing some data entry for another company that happened to be in walking distance from my new place at the time. Now, my new place, so I moved back summer of 2009. My dad is a real estate agent. He does basically everything there is to do with housing. He, at the time, owned this very unique house. It's in a historical neighborhood here. And from the outside, it looks like a normal, classic, old house built during World War II, or maybe shortly thereafter, very shortly thereafter. Certainly not after the 50s. But it looks like a normal house from the outside. You see a single door and a concrete walkway and 2 bedroom windows upstairs. What you don't know till you walk in, and while I was there, I thought about breaking out the 2 inner doors. If you owned this place, it would be a cool thing to do. But once you walk in that front door, you go up a staircase, and it's actually 2 separate apartments. So you go in a main door, and then there's 2 other doors that are right there at the top of the staircase. And I always thought it would be kind of cool if you just took out the 2 inner doors. And inside each, it's basically just an efficiency apartment. That was the only time I've ever lived anywhere that had a window unit for an AC. and a little furnace to heat the place. So there was no heating or AC. It's a single room. Is the living room and the bedroom together, one big room, tiny, tiny, tiny bathroom, and actually a pretty cool kitchen. It was small, but well, I wish I could describe it better. Unique experience living there. That's where I had a big awakening living there. So I lived at that place for almost 3 years. And that's where I had a full, hard, jarring awakening experience. That was February of 2011. I feel a bit of a deja vu. Did I talk about this before? Maybe I mentioned that in the music video. So February 2011. It was during that very short time that I found myself recalling moments in my life that had been building toward that. Much of this included, let's see, this must have started somewhere around 2005, 2006. I started becoming very attracted to goddess Saraswati and images of her, buying and printing images, having them framed and putting them up on the wall, little statuettes, things like that. I'd have an image of her on my computer screen, that kind of thing. That was sort of a preview, I kind of realized, and everything she represents. And I won't talk about that. If you're unfamiliar with her, just look up her name, Saraswati. The themes of books I was buying and subjects sought on the internet, so many things corroborating and validating each other. The thing that finally brought it out, though, to the forefront of my thoughts, like, okay, this is happening, was while writing what at that time was intended to be a screenplay. I hesitate to want to tell you about this, but I hesitate to talk too much about it because it would mean giving away some crucial things about a story that's my idea, and I know how people are with literary theft. But I'll tell you just enough. It's about, the idea is it focuses on Shakespeare's tragedy of Macbeth, but from the perspective of Lady Macbeth. And it's about some things that go on behind the scenes of Shakespeare's Macbeth. So while those particular scenes are occurring, you're seeing something happening elsewhere, but you're also finding out some things happening between the scenes, and it's all with the lady as the central subject, the central character. And regarding the three witches in the story, so I have to give away this part. That's okay. It's before any kind of climax or anything. Basically, Lady Macbeth used to be, in her very young days, which wasn't all that long ago, one of the witches. And the three, when they were young, two, obviously, were putting her through an initiation. And it was during the particulars of this initiation scene that, as it was happening, it's one of those moments that any writer could identify with. I don't care your age or experience, where the story is like writing itself, and it's as if you're an audience member waiting to find out what's going to happen. So this experience acted sort of as a catalyst for my own initiation. I came to some revelations with witchcraft itself, occultism, hidden history, absolute dedication to the truth. You've probably already thought of 100 things related to what I'm talking about right now, and finding the connections between all of that. We never really fully get there and just say, okay, now I know this is what happened. There's always more to learn, but you can find yourself and correctly identify your actual position on the path at some point in your life if you want to. Well, I found myself there, and I'm grateful for being able to identify the moment, February 2011, and I'm in, and I understood the pentagram, the pentacle, and relationship to Venus, and it was all about not just identifying and knowing, but sharing with people the relationships between astronomical events and astrological with life on Earth and storytelling and the way we memorialize our observation of these events. So that's the main crux of my big awakening. Seeing an image too of realizing what the Orion's belt was really about in the winter solstice and the birth of, let's just say, the stories you hear in Christianity and Catholicism and their astrological origin. And three wise men, the three stars on Orion's belt at winter solstice, pointing the way where the sun, S-U-N, will rise again every year. And 3 days, the whole bit. That part crushed me, because although I had crushed, maybe a hard word, but that was a big part of the jarring experience. Despite the fact that I had left, in my heart, left Catholicism and any idea of Christianity behind already, I still carried with me, I suppose, a lot of the ideals that are to be found there. And realizing that was all just myth. And I say just myth as if there's no truth to be found in it. There is, it's just not what we're told. That's jarring when you can narrow it down to a single moment and you realize you're having to drop a lot of what you've been carrying around with you. And of course, a lot of things in life are like that, but particularly when it involves something religious or spiritual. And I'm grateful for that, because since then I can gather and hold dear to myself the truths that I find in that religion related to those religions, related to many others. And of course, the big ongoing problem I try to expose and deal with and talk very openly about, as well as be open about, is are the points about all the major religions that people speak for. You know, the words of God as translated by man became one of my big issues. And so, of course, all this stuff, the mythological and historical elements, every story I write, almost every story I write, and the ones I take notes on that I want to write have a historical setting, or a mythological one, or a mix of the two. And let's not even go there for now. I'll make another video about the things I'm writing. I'll add that right now I am, one of the reasons you're not seeing many videos from me lately, I am working on what I hope to be ultimately a published novel that's, I can see it all, but it's a huge story, it's stories within stories, and let's just for now call it a sort of Boccaccio's Decameron is an inspiration. for this. It's a group of people gathered together telling stories to while away the time while they're all presently involved in a larger story. So there's a bookend plot, and can I be any more vague? Well, that's intentional. So that's what I'm working on now. I am hoping to, I've said this before too, God bless it, to make some more videos, some actual videos that require energy and time and planning and editing, and research, heavy research, the kind I'm giving to my story I'm writing, because I find myself suddenly with a lot more time. I have been, I think I mentioned before, my wife and I bought a new house last summer. So you can imagine all the time that's taken up. But I have worked an average of 70 to 75 hours a week for most of the last year until about a month ago. I guess this economy is finally hitting the company I work for, because they have just cut all the overtime, and the way it's been going is there's some mandatory and some optional in addition. Well, I've been choosing to just take all of it. The more the better, obviously. But now they have a new rule. I think they just don't want to pay it. Can't work any overtime at all. So that means a lot more time on my hands, which I'm devoting to writing and researching, and hopefully much more to you all and to this, what we're doing here and now. Wow, let me backtrack a little bit. I don't want to forget anything. Okay, so Sarasvati has become sort of the muse in my life. Here she is, literally above me in my home office. So that second data entry job that was in walking distance from that house, I couldn't hang around there because my boss was a tyrant. Really, imagine Hitler as a woman. I mean that, just without the death. We're talking about actual screaming, and, enough is enough, just get out. So it was very shortly after leaving that job. Wait a minute, no it wasn't. So during the last year with that job, specifically in April, I already knew I needed to leave, and I was on the hunt for new work, but I was also getting just sick inside from not yet being with the woman I already felt married to in my heart, my twin flame. So during the summer of 2012, there was an amazing event. I don't know if any of you were able to catch it, but Venus, the planet Venus, it was observable. You could see it pass in front of the sun. Think of the significance of that, you astrologers out there. Now, I'm a Taurus ruled by Venus. My wife is a Libra ruled by Venus. It was during this event that I made a video. I had written a letter to my twin flame, decided to read it online. What better way to search the world? Between that and a little bit of sigil magic, we found each other. Then I quit my job, and I have never been happier to do so. Some of you may know she's from Iran. We married in Istanbul, waited 2 years because of our respective countries, more so the U.S. than Iran, actually, to actually be able to live together legally. But she's here. Yeah, we married in Istanbul. I was jobless and happy. I knew I'd get something when I came back home. I finally thought to ask for my old job back with the insurance company. And I had originally started in 2002, by the way. I guess I said that, I had just turned 30. And they took me back, so I've been there now the second time around since 2014, shortly, a few months after getting married. Look, there was something else I wanted to say about the year 20. Oh, tarot. The year 2012, wow. So we had Venus passing in front of the sun. I made the video that my wife saw and watched it over and over before finally being able to actually contact me. And I had been exposed to tarot. You know, it had come up, of course, it arises in occult studies. And my intuitive side drooled over the glimpses I was getting. But it was 2012 when I got it, you know, and I studied and used the cards and studied and so on. That's also when I began collecting decks, knowing I would never use all that I acquired, but that it would not be long till some of these decks became rare, while others I knew were already rarefying, and that keeps proving true. So I enjoy collecting tarot decks in the same way I love collecting books. I'm sorry, I'm just not, I don't read books on my phone. I read some ebooks on the computer, that helps, but I love having the actual book. I'm one of those nerds that the smell of it, new or old, that I like having different editions of the same book. I'll stop myself there because I can go on. Yeah, so this is, right now is an interesting time to have been asked for a backstory, considering what's going on with a new chapter opening for us. The new house, the new time I have, all the writing and reading, and the reasons for doing so. So much is changing presently is how I could have summarized that. So my wife and I have been in our new house for almost a year now, and we haven't had time to turn any part of our backyard into a full actual garden yet, but we are getting there. Right now we have some heirloom tomatoes that are thriving, along with some cardinal climber vines. But our carrots and cilantro looked promising with their sprouts, but those had quickly fallen over and died. This was not very long ago. I'm kind of disappointed about that. Hopefully that changes next year. So you're kind of up to speed. I don't know what else really to talk about. There's childhood stuff. I have never had any kind of abuse, there have been no significant events that formed who I am in my childhood other than just living life in general. I have a very loving family. Mom said, well, there's a big part of me I've not mentioned. My mom's side of the family is 100% Italian. My dad's side of the family is everything you find in the UK: Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, anything you can think of is there. Probably leaning more towards the Irish. So maybe I'll regret not having mentioned a couple things later. Right now, I'm out. You're up to date. I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm hoping to make you more videos. I have a book out. I plan on reading for you soon. I've got some research projects. This is what you're getting for now. The next one will probably be a book reading, and I hope to get you a research project, like a biography, something like that, in the very near future. I am so grateful for every single one of you. I am almost to 25,000 subscribers. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for your time and attention. That I really appreciate it. I'll see you all soon. Take care of yourselves.